Is this what rock bottom looks like for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Scouring the bargain bin for a 22-year-old Russian forward who can't crack the lineup of a team that's been rebuilding since the Stone Age? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're diving deep into a story that perfectly encapsulates where the blue and white find themselves in late November 2025. Last place in the Atlantic Division, injuries piling up like unpaid parking tickets, and Brad Treliving apparently speed-dialing every NHL front office, looking for anything that might inject life into this lifeless corpse of the season. The latest name to surface? Pavel Mintyukov, a former first-round pick of the Anaheim Ducks who's reportedly unhappy with his ice time, has requested a trade. And here's the kicker. Has managed just 3 assists in 19 games this season. 3 assists in 19 games. Now, before you smash that dislike button, hear me out. Because while this might sound like the Leafs are shopping at the clearance rack at a dollar store, there's actually a fascinating chess match happening here that could reveal whether Treliving is a desperate general manager grasping at straws or a calculated strategist seeing value where others see damaged goods. Buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride through desperation, opportunity, and the eternal question that haunts every Leafs fan. Is this finally the move that changes everything or just another headline that leads nowhere? The Menchukov situation. What's really going on? Let's establish the facts, because in the swirling chaos of NHL trade rumors, facts are about as rare as a Leafs playoff series victory. Pavel Mintyukov was selected 10th overall by the Anaheim Ducks in the 2022 NHL Draft. That's not a throw-in pick. That's not a flyer on an overture from the Swedish 3rd Division. That's a top 10 selection. The kind of pick that organizations build around, that fans dream on, that represents franchise-altering potential. Fast forward to November 2025, and according to Fourth Period's report from November 23rd, Menchukov is sitting on 3 assists through 19 games and reportedly fuming about his ice time under Ducks head coach Greg Cronin. The relationship has deteriorated to the point where the young Russian has formally requested a change of scenery. Now, let's pause here and ask the uncomfortable question. Why? Why would a team that's been in full-scale rebuild mode for years suddenly freeze out a former top 10 pick who's still just 22 years old? The Ducks aren't exactly drowning in elite talent. This isn't the Tampa Bay Lightning benching a prospect because they've got Nikita Kucherov and Steven Stamkos ahead of him. This is Anaheim, a team that's been bad for so long that their fans probably think the playoffs are an urban legend. There are really only 3 plausible explanations. 1, Menchukov's development has stalled or regressed to the point where the coaching staff doesn't trust him in meaningful situations. That 3-assist stat line isn't just bad luck. It's a symptom of a player who isn't producing, isn't creating, and isn't justifying ice time. 2, there's a personality or attitude issue. Maybe Menchukov doesn't fit the culture Cronin is trying to build. Maybe he's not buying into the system. Maybe there's friction in the locker room. We've seen it before. Talented players who just don't mesh with their organization. 3, the Ducks prospect pipeline has gotten so deep and so talented that Menchukov has simply been leapfrogged by younger, hungrier players. Leo Carlson, Mason McTavish, Cutter Gauthier, Anaheim's forward cupboard is suddenly stocked, and Menchukov might be the odd man out through no fault of his own. My gut? It's probably a combination of all 3. The production isn't there, which creates tension. The tension affects his attitude and ice time. The reduced ice time tanks his confidence. And suddenly, you got a vicious cycle where a once promising prospect is spiraling into irrelevance. But here's where it gets interesting for Toronto. One team's trash could be another team's treasure. And if there's one thing Brad Treliving has shown a willingness to do, it's gamble on reclamation projects. The Maple Leafs' desperation. Context matters, let's not sugarcoat this. The Toronto Maple Leafs are in crisis mode. Last place in the Atlantic Division. Last place. The same division that includes the Montreal Canadiens, a team that's been openly tanking for years. The same division where the Ottawa Senators exist. And yet, here are the Leafs, sitting at the bottom like a boat anchor wrapped in disappointment. The injury situation reads like a hospital triage report. Austin Matthews, the franchise cornerstone, the $13.25 million man, the guy who's supposed to be leading this team to the promised land, has been in and out of the lineup. Matthew Knies, one of the few bright spots in an otherwise dismal season, is sidelined. The depth scoring has evaporated like morning dew in the Sahara Desert. Beyond William Nylander and John Tavares, this offense is generating about as much excitement as a tax seminar. The supporting cast, guys who are supposed to chip in 15 to 20 goals over a season, are playing like they've forgotten which end of the rink to shoot at. And here's the really terrifying part. Time is running out. We're approaching December. The trade deadline is February 28th. That's roughly 3 months away. If the Leafs don't start turning this ship around immediately, they're not going to be buyers at the deadline. They're going to be sellers. Can you imagine the Toronto Maple Leafs, with their sky-high payroll and championship or bust expectations, selling off pieces at the deadline like a garage sale? Brad Treliving knows this. He feels the pressure from ownership, from the fan base, from the media. He promised a shakeup. He promised changes. And now he's got to deliver. Enter Pavel Mintyukov, a low-risk, potentially high-reward gamble that could either spark a turnaround or become just another footnote in the encyclopedia of Leafs disappointments. The competition. Who else wants Menchukov? According to fourth period's report, Toronto isn't alone in their interest. The San Jose Sharks, Vancouver Canucks, Pittsburgh Penguins, and Winnipeg Jets have all reportedly kicked the tires on Menchukov's availability. Let's break down the competition. San Jose Sharks. They're in full rebuild mode, stockpiling young assets and draft picks. They can offer Menchukov a fresh start and plenty of ice time on a team with zero pressure. For a player frustrated with his role, that's appealing. Vancouver Canucks, a division rival with playoff aspirations and a need for depth scoring. They've got the cap space and the organizational stability to make Menchukov feel valued. Pittsburgh Penguins, an aging core desperately trying to squeeze one more playoff run out of Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. They need young legs and speed. Menchukov fits that profile. Winnipeg Jets, a legitimate Stanley Cup contender with depth issues up front. They could slot Menchukov into a protected third-line role and let him develop without the spotlight. So, what does Toronto have to offer that these teams don't? Opportunity. Despite the team's struggles, the Leafs still have elite offensive talent. Playing alongside guys like Nylander and Tavares could elevate Menchukov's game in ways that grinding out on San Jose's fourth line never could. Pressure. Now, I know what you're thinking. Pressure? That's a positive. Hear me out. Some players thrive under pressure. Some players need the spotlight to bring out their best. If Menchukov has that competitive fire, Toronto is the ultimate test. Market. Playing in Toronto means playing on the biggest stage in hockey. Every shift is analyzed. Every goal is celebrated. Every mistake is scrutinized. For a young player trying to rebuild his reputation, there's no better place to make a statement. But Treliving has to move fast. If other teams start making serious offers, the Ducks will have leverage. And leverage means the price goes up. How Menchukov fits. The tactical breakdown, all right. Let's get into the X's and O's. Where does Pavel Mintyukov actually fit into the Maple Leafs lineup? Option 1. Second line with Tavares and Nylander. This is a high-ceiling, high-risk option. You slot Menchukov onto the second line with two proven offensive weapons and see if his speed and skill can complement their playmaking. Tavares is a cerebral center who can set up wingers in dangerous areas. Nylander is one of the most dynamic offensive players in the league. If Menchukov can keep up and finish the chances they create, this line could be lethal. The risk? If Menchukov can't handle the responsibility, you're wasting prime offensive minutes on a player who's not producing. And with the Leafs' current standing, they can't afford to waste anything. Option 2. Third line with Nick Robertson. This is the safer, more developmental approach. Nick Robertson has been one of the few pleasant surprises this season for Toronto. He's scrappy, he's got a nose for the net, and he's finally staying healthy. Pairing him with Menchukov creates a kid-line dynamic. Two young players trying to prove themselves, feeding off each other's energy. You could even throw Easton Cowan into the mix if he gets called up. Suddenly, you've got a third line that's fast, hungry, and cheap. That's a recipe for success in today's NHL. The downside? You're betting on potential rather than proven production. If the line struggles, you're right back where you started. Option 3. Shelter fourth line minutes. This is a prove-it option. You bring Menchukov in, give him limited minutes in low-pressure situations, and see if he can earn his way up the lineup. It protects the team from overexposing a struggling player while giving Menchukov a chance to rebuild his confidence. Personally, I think option 2 makes the most sense. The Leafs need energy and speed in their bottom 6. Pairing Menchukov with Robertson gives you that without putting too much pressure on either player. Let them grow together, let them make mistakes together, and see what develops. The trade package, what would it cost? Here's where things get really interesting. What would the Ducks actually want in return for Menchukov? The article mentions Kaye Jarnkrok as a potential trade chip. Jarnkrok is a 32-year-old defensive forward, making $2.1 million per season through 2025-26. He's exactly the kind of veteran presence a young Ducks team could use. Responsible defensively, good in the face-off circle, experienced in playoff situations. From Anaheim's perspective, that makes sense. They're not looking for a first-round pick for a player who's requested a trade and is producing at a replacement-level rate. They want a useful roster player who can help their young core develop winning habits. From Toronto's perspective, moving Jarnkrok opens up cap space and a roster spot for Menchukov. It's a lateral move in terms of immediate impact, but it swaps a declining veteran for a player with upside. That's the kind of move contending teams should be making. Other names mentioned include Dakota Joshua and Matthias Maxelli, though neither is currently on the Leafs roster, so that's likely speculative reporting or mix-up. The bottom line, this trade shouldn't cost Toronto significant assets. A mid-tier roster player, maybe a mid-round pick as a sweetener. That's it. If Anaheim is asking for more, Treliving should walk away. The bigger picture. What this says about the Leaf strategy, let's zoom out for a moment and talk about what a potential Menchukov acquisition reveals about Brad Treliving's approach to fixing this team. This isn't a blockbuster trade. This isn't acquiring a top-pairing defenseman or a proven 30-goal scorer. This is a depth move, the kind of under-the-radar transaction that doesn't make headlines but can quietly shift the team's trajectory. And you know what? That might be exactly what the Leafs need. Toronto's core is set. Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, Marner. Those guys aren't going anywhere. The problem isn't at the top of the roster. The problem is depth. The problem is secondary scoring. The problem is finding contributors beyond the big names. If Treliving can acquire Menchukov for minimal cost, and the kid rediscovers his game in Toronto, that's a massive win. Even if he only becomes a solid third liner who chips in 30 to 40 points, that's valuable. But here's the catch. This can't be the only move. The Leafs need multiple injections of talent, energy, and desperation. One reclamation project isn't going to save the season. Treliving needs to be working the phones on multiple fronts, exploring every avenue to upgrade this roster. Menchukov could be the first domino, but there need to be more dominoes behind him. So where does that leave us? The Toronto Maple Leafs are reportedly interested in Pavel Mintyukov, a disgruntled 22-year-old forward who struggled this season, but still possesses the pedigree and skill set of a former top 10 pick. The cost would be minimal, likely a veteran depth forward like Kaye Jarnkrok. The upside is significant if Menchukov can recapture his form. Is this desperation? Absolutely. When you're in last place in your division, every move is born from desperation. But is it also smart? Potentially. Low risk, high reward gambles are how smart organizations find hidden gems. If Menchukov becomes even a serviceable NHLer, this trade is a win. The real question is whether Brad Treliving has the courage to pull the trigger and the patience to let it develop. Because in Toronto, patience is about as common as a Zamboni in the Sahara. All right, folks, that's where we stand on the Pavel Mintyukov situation. A fascinating subplot in what's been an absolutely miserable season for Leafs Nation. What do you think? Should Toronto take a chance on Menchukov? Is he the spark this team desperately needs, or just another distraction from the real problems? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the chaos that is the 2025 Maple Leaf season, smash that like button and let me know what other stories you want to cover. Subscribe if you haven't already. Because trust me, this season is far from over, and there's going to be plenty more drama to dissect. Until next time, stay strong, Leafs fans. We're going to need it.